slamming back and forth. And Marcia's not one to be put off and immediately calls back. Gail answers the phone. And Gail tells Marcia if she doesn't quit harassing her son, she's going to call the police.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
And Marcia's like,
you're going to call the police? I'm going to call the police.
Yeah. Marcia says, no, don't worry about calling the police because I'm going to be on the phone to them and tell them the first person they need to talk to about her daughter's disappearance is her son, Steven Pfiel. So the police arrive at Steven's house and Gail answers the door. And you've got to imagine in these multi-million-dollar homes, it's going to be flustering for the Pfiel family. You know, now the neighbors are going to be, why are the police showing up here? And, you know, a little bit of a social embarrassment. And the police notice a strong smell of blood through the house. And Gail tells the officer that Steven is outside in the garage cleaning and working on his car. So they follow Gail to the garage and find Steven rigorously scrubbing the seats of his car. And the car seats are covered in red stains. I mean, it was saturated. And the police ask him what the stains are, and Steven tells them that it's Kool-Aid.
Yes.
Yeah. He says that a bottle of Kool-Aid exploded in the car.
Kool-Aid's always getting a bad rap.
Always getting a bad rap. And he suggests to the officers kind of boldly, you know, he's got a little bit of moxie here, that why don't they drive the car to the station and have the seats tested if they don't believe that it's Kool-Aid? The police are like, we'll take you up on that offer. Thank you.
You know, and to be honest, Kool-Aid is probably one of the only beverages that would never explode under any circumstance.
No, there's no carbonation.
Yeah, it can't go bad. It can't swell. Come on, dude. Good try.
So there were 3 long days after Hillary left the party and was not seen again. And it's 3 days after her disappearance that 2 Commonwealth Edison employees are busy laying line in a new subdivision being built in Palos Park. As they are walking through a vacant lot, they come across a gruesome sight. A badly decomposed body lays about the weeds and brambles. They call the police, and the police note the body is in the same clothes that Hillary was reported missing in. The body is so decomposed that they have to ask Marcia for dental records to help identify the body. And Hillary's body was so badly decomposed that Marcia was not permitted to come and see her or identify her.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's because it was the summer, right? Probably the heat, the outside and the elements.
The outside, the elements, and it's very, I think, humid in that part of the country. And detectives tell Marcia the sad news that they have indeed found her daughter, but unfortunately, she will not be able to speak with her again.
So the samples from Steven Pfiel's car come back from the lab as blood, not Kool-Aid as he had proclaimed.
Shocker.
Right? So based on that fact and the fact that Hillary's body had been found, the police arrest Steven. In the course of their investigation, they found bloody clothes in Steven's room and a bloody knife. The Pfiels request that they be able to bail their son out because they feel Steven is picking up bad language being locked up with criminals. Oh, it's so terrible. So terrible that he should be subjected to something like that, you know, behind bars.
I know. All this bad language instead of murdering young women. Okay.
So the judge,
family.
Yeah, the judge agrees, of course, because we have to remember they are rich.
Yeah.
And he grants Steven bail and Steven's free again. Then the Pfiels request to move to St. John, Indiana, because they feel that they're being harassed. The judge grants this request as well, but as soon as the residents of St. John, Indiana get wind of the move, they adamantly protest the Pfiels coming to their small town, and gun sales in the area literally skyrocket.
People were very angry they were moving there.
I don't blame them. Hey lovelies, War Baby here with an update on HelloFresh. I can't even begin to tell you how much I look forward to my HelloFresh deliveries. I am loving not having to plan dinner or worry about gathering ingredients, and I've been spending less and less on takeout and fast food. If you've been on the fence about giving HelloFresh a try, now is a great time to start the year off making dinners fuss-free with HelloFresh's picky eater, kid-tested, and family-approved recipes. For a total of $60 off, that's $20 off your first 3 boxes. Visit HelloFresh.com/KillerKid60 and enter promo code KillerKid60 and get out of that recipe rut and start cooking outside of your comfort zone. Discover new delicious recipes in each week's box. All the ingredients come pre-measured in handy labeled meal kits so you know exactly which ingredients go with which recipe. We absolutely loved the cheesy stuffed Mexican meatloaves with rice and pickled jalapenos. It was so flavorful, and the portion sizes were impressive. To start getting delicious, filling meals for less than $10 a serving and free shipping, head to HelloFresh.com/KillerKid60, enter code KillerKid60 for $60 off your first 3 boxes. It's like getting 6 meals for free. Before we get back to the show, let me tell you about Shudder, AMC Network's premium streaming service, super serving fans of all degrees with the best selection of horror and thrillers that you can stream for $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year. This gets you unlimited access to stream ad-free on all your favorite devices like iPhone and iPad, Android devices, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and Xbox One. Shudder has the largest, fastest-growing, human-curated selection of thrilling and dangerous entertainment. With new spine-tingling thrillers, shocking horrors, and edge-of-your-seat suspense added weekly, it is absolutely the Netflix for horror. The first thing I did was watch and rewatch Mandy starring Nicolas Cage, now streaming exclusively on Shudder, and it definitely gets better each time you see it. To try Shudder for free, head over to Shudder.com and enter promo code WARBABY. That's SHUDDER.com, promo code WARBABY. Once you've seen Mandy, check out some other titles like Rob Zombie's 31, Hell House 2, and Stan Lee's Lucky Man. Go to Shudder.com and enter code WARBABY for your first month subscription on me, because at Shudder, we believe in safety in numbers. Don't be left alone in the dark. So out of fear, the Pfiels then decided to move to a small town called Crete, Illinois, in another county. The Pfiels are Steven's strongest advocate, professing his innocence every chance they get. They just can't imagine him having done something like this. Which, a lot of parents, that's how most parents would likely feel, especially parents who aren't really paying attention to what their kids are really like.
We had that talk before about parents who would bury a body for their kids versus the parents who will not. And
my dad would literally call the police and my mom would testify against me.
Because, sometimes it's like parents feel like if their children do anything wrong, it's a direct reflection on how they raise them. Which, it is sometimes, but oftentimes, really, the direct reflection on you is going to come with how you react to the situation,
Yeah, I think that's so true.
So it's a few months after Steven's arrest, and he's still out on bond, and the family have finally settled into Crete Township, Illinois. Steven's parents, Roger Sr. and Gail, drive into Chicago to celebrate St. Patrick's Day because that's what every parents do while their son is out on bail for murder. I would guess maybe just the rich ones. I'm not really sure. But about 12:20 a.m., Roger Jr. comes back home from his job at the Speedway. And anxious to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, the boys start drinking Jägermeister and smoking pot that Roger had hidden in his closet. And despite the fact that Steven is out on bail, he continues to party like he's just a regular old high school kid, Oh. Roger falls asleep, and Steven, he just continues smoking, and he's watching TV in Roger's room. At 3 a.m., Steven gets up and returns the pot to Roger's closet. As he put the marijuana away, he noticed Roger's wooden baseball bat. Steven grabs the bat and starts doing some practice swings. As he swings the bat through the air, he glances at his brother sleeping peacefully in his bed.
So Steve raises the bat over his head and brings it down on his sleeping brother. Bang, bang, bang. Roger begins gurgling, choking in his own blood. Steven looks down at his brother in shock. Unable to bear the sound of his brother gasping for air, Steven rushes into the kitchen. Glancing around, he sees a meat cleaver on the butcher block and grabs it. He runs back into Roger's room, and proceeds to slice his brother's throat to bring an end to the awful noise. Backing away from Roger's lifeless body, he runs into his sister's room and wakes her up. He tells her that he killed Roger and he wants to kill himself. She tells him not to and to just run. So Steven scrawls a note to his parents and he takes his sister's advice and books it out of there. He breaks into his father's gun cabinet and takes a small arsenal of weapons, his father's checkbook, and a car, and heads south. You got to think that this kid has been smoking pot, drinking, and he's out for bail for one murder, and he's just murdered his own brother, and now he's grabbing guns from his family arsenal. I mean, he's incredibly dangerous at that moment. He makes a quick stop at a local pawn shop and tries to cash a check he forged, but is unable to. Unsure of what to do, he pulls up at a rest stop. Sitting at the rest stop, Steven contemplates his next move. He keeps on playing what happened over and over in his head and begins to think how much better things would be if he just died. I should just kill myself, he thinks. After about an hour or so, Steven makes up his mind. He starts his car and speeds out of the parking lot, heading back toward Crete. As he speeds down the highway, he passes the sheriff's department, where he sees his relatives and his family friends speaking with deputies along with his attorney. More determined than ever, he heads to Crete Village Hall and parks. He jumps out of the car, walks up to the doors with a determined gait. He bangs on the door, demanding entrance. Only Mayor Einhorn is inside, trying to get some work done on a Saturday. Quite surprised to be disturbed, he looks up and sees Steven standing outside the door. "We're closed," he yells, waiting for Steven to go away. However, Steven is determined and begins to pound on the door even harder. Mayor Einhorn opens the door and begins to tell the young man to be on his way. But before he could get the words out, Steven blurts out, "I'm Steven Pfiel, I'm in trouble, and I need help." The mayor pauses, immediately recognizing the name as a person of interest in the murder of Roger Pfiel. Gulping, the mayor says, "Wait a second, and I'll get someone to help you." At that, he hurries back to the office and calls police. The police arrive a few minutes later, and the mayor makes the introductions. "Steven, this officer will help you," the mayor murmurs. The officer removes his handcuffs, and without any prompting, Steve places his hands behind his back. After cuffing Steve, the officer takes him into custody without any further conversation.
Steven sits back in his chair and looks at the investigators and begins to tell his tale of how he slayed his brother while he slept in his bed. "Why did you do it, Steven?" the officer asked, staring at him intently. "I don't know. I was just out of control and couldn't stop myself," Steven replied. "You said in the note you left your parents. Now I know I killed 2 people. What did you mean by that?" the investigator asked. Cocking his head to one side with a puzzled expression on his face, Steven answers, "Well, I killed my brother, so I must have killed that girl too." The investigators complete their interview with Steven, serve him with a warrant for the murder of his brother, Roger Pfiel, and transport him to the adult detention center. A few days later, Steven appears before a judge to hear the charges against him. After his hearing, a reporter shouted out to Steven asking, "Steven, do you have anything to say?" Looking at the reporter dead in the face, Steven lifts his handcuffed hands and extends his middle fingers upward as his response. In the coming months, Steven met with a psychologist and spoke with his attorney about pleading not guilty by reason of insanity. However, when he learned that he was facing the death penalty for his brother's death, he decided to accept a plea deal offered by the prosecutors. In exchange for a guilty plea, he would get 100 years for the murder of Hillary Norskog and natural life in prison for the murder of his brother, Roger. In Illinois, life is life, and Steven has absolutely no chance of parole. Marcia, determined that Steven's parents be held accountable for their inaction and their son's antisocial behavior, And she felt very strongly when we spoke to her that is what led up to her daughter's death, is their inaction. She actually went ahead and brought a civil case against Steven's parents in 1995, alleging that they knew of Steven's